All right, and next up we got Jonathan Pearce and Christian Rodriguez. Before we get into Jonathan Pearce, let's talk about Christian Rodriguez a bit. I mean, I think he had an absolutely phenomenal showing on the Dana White Contender Series, and when you think about the things he did well, that's what really stood out, right? You know, they praised him so much for his angle cutting, the way he takes the shots well, picking his spots, and he landed 78 significant strikes in that fight. So I think that there's something to really take away from how good of a boxer he is. And the big thing for me is like the defense, right? So he had a lot of hand fighting, he had a guard, and he picked really good counters throughout the whole fight. When you think about how much Reyes Cortez was trying to implement the wrestling and trying to get the fight to the ground, it was just the gas tank was taking such a beating just from the pace and the pressure that I think that we saw Rodriguez at just 24 years old, 23 years old, I think at the time, maybe younger, really come into his own. I think that the big thing for us, though, when we talk about this fight with Jonathan Pearce, I mean, there's a couple great storylines that we can touch on. You know, not only does Fight Ready get another opportunity at Christian Rodriguez through Jonathan Pearce after that Dana White Contender Series fight, but you really look at the way Jonathan Pearce has come up. I mean, every single old school fan wants to just, you know, give Jonathan Pearce a big hug for letting Joe Lozon get a big win like that in 2019. Letting is a tough word to use, but to see Big Joe get a finish like that in 2019, it was just such a phenomenal fight for him. But again, Jonathan Pearce came back guns a-blazing after that. I mean, to finish Kai Kamaka the way he did is a huge feat. I mean, Kai Boy throws with such intent. He's got such good footwork and boxing, and the pace he puts on you is so intense. And I think that Pearce did a very good job in that fight. And then you fast forward to, the most recent fight that we saw. And you really have to tell yourself that he's finally coming into his own. I think that we're seeing a version of Pearce that not only has developed very well since that Joe Lozon fight, but my favorite part about his game is the pace, the takedowns, and his ability to really kind of wear on you. And in this case, I think Christian Rodriguez, when you think about the type of fighter he took on in the Dana White Contender Series, I mean, Jonathan Pearce is a different beast. I think that he's going to bring great volume when it comes to the stand-up, but he's going to force the takedowns, he's going to force the level changing, the clinch work a lot more. I don't think that he's going to be getting slowed down in any way with too many strikes, and I think he's going to give a good amount of output of his own. I think the fight against Omar Morales stood out the most for me because of just how good Omar has looked in the past, right? Only one loss before that, and it was Giga Chikadze. The second person to beat him was Jonathan Pearce in his last bout. So I really like the version of Jonathan Pearce that we're seeing. I think that the Lozon loss definitely lit a fire under him. We've seen two big finishes from him. You talk about the pace. You talk about his specific ability to level change. I think that's exactly where he's going to be able to win this fight. And so in terms of picking a line, I got Pearce here as a minus 190, even a minus 200. I just think the experience, the training camp, the momentum, and also Fight Ready having that chip on their shoulder from the Cortez Dana White Contender Series fight, I think that's going to play a huge part in this one. So let's take a look at the odds. Minus 190 was my call here. And Jonathan Pearce, I mean, he opened as a minus 180, so my opening line with Vegas is pretty accurate. But clearly, now jumping into the areas of being potentially one of the biggest favorites on the card, on average about a minus 330, while Rodriguez goes from a plus 159 to a plus 270. So that's big line movement right there from the opener, and I think that goes hand in hand with what we were just saying. There's a lot of both skill-wise and momentum-wise that are in favor for Pearce, and I think that Fight Ready is going to go in there with their best wits about them.